Not every nut is the same, and after 60 that makes even more of a difference. Some people look at a little bowl of nuts and think, there, I'm eating healthy. But in practice, some nuts can be a silent push toward inflammation, rising blood pressure, unbalanced blood sugar, and even joint discomfort. And others do the opposite. They help the heart work with less effort, support memory, protect vision, and even curb that random mid-afternoon hunger. The problem is that almost no one explains this in a simple way. They just stick with the nuts are good message, period. But after 60, the body changes. Digestion becomes more sensitive, blood vessels get stiffer, the kidneys don't always handle excess minerals well, and many people already take medication daily. So what used to be whatever now becomes better choose wisely. And that's exactly what we're going to do here today. No fluff and no scare tactics. I'm going to show you 4 nuts that, for most people over 60, are worth their weight in gold on a daily basis, because they have the right kind of fat, fiber, and nutrients that make a real difference. And then I'm going to show you 4 that seem harmless, show up in fitness mixes, and even in famous recipes. But depending on how often and how you eat them, can do more harm than good. And it's not just going to be a list, okay? For each one, I'm going to explain clearly what it has, what it does in the body, what's the most common mistake that ruins the benefit, and what's the simplest way to include it without overdoing it. Like, this one is better without salt. This one is easy to overeat. This one doesn't go well for people with certain sensitivities. Oh, and one detail. When I say avoid, it doesn't mean you can never look at it again. It's just that a lot of people turn it into a daily habit thinking they're taking care of themselves, and then get confused when their health doesn't improve. So tell me this. Which nuts do you eat the most in your routine? And do you usually buy them plain, nothing added, or go for those ready-made mixes? Now let's get started with the 4 best ones to prioritize after 60. Starting with the first on the good list, I want to clear up a question many people have. Do I need to eat a lot for it to work? No. With nuts, almost always the secret is consistency and the right portion. A small handful a day, or almost every day, is usually smarter than overdoing it one day and going a week without. And another thing, always prefer the simpler versions, raw or lightly toasted. No sugar, no salty coating that leaves your hands shiny with oil. That's where the difference lies. The 4th on our list is the pecan. A lot of people only think of it in desserts, pies, sweet toppings, and then it gets the reputation of a sugar nut. But pecans, done right, can be an excellent ally for those over 60. They have a fat profile that usually works well with the heart, and they also bring plant compounds that act as extra help against that low-grade inflammation that builds up over time. And there's a practical point. Pecans feel like a satisfying snack. You know when you eat a cookie, and 10 minutes later it feels like you ate nothing? That usually doesn't happen with pecans. They settle better, curb hunger, and help many people snack on fewer empty calories between meals. The most common mistake with pecans is falling for the sweet version. Candied pecans, chocolate-covered pecans, pecans in sugary granola. That ruins the best part of them. If you want to use them at breakfast, the simple way is plain yogurt, chopped fruit, and a small handful of crushed pecans on top. It tastes good, adds texture, and you don't need to sweeten everything. If you're more into savory, you can toast them quickly in a dry pan, just to release aroma, and toss them on a salad. And if chewing is hard, crush them and use as a crumb topping over soup or vegetables. Pecans have that comforting side, and at the same time are nutritious. Now let's go to one that almost everyone recognizes at a glance. The walnut, the traditional one that looks like a mini brain. And I'm not going to get into the whole looks like a brain, so it's good for the brain, as if it's magic. But you can understand why it got that reputation. Walnuts are usually among the best when it comes to the kind of good fat that talks to the brain. After 60, many people feel their mind doesn't function the same. Forget names, lose track of conversation, feel a mental fog on bad sleep days. Walnuts help provide better raw material for the body to work with, and that often reflects in clarity, mood, and even energy. And it's not just about the head. Walnuts are also interesting for those concerned with strength and independence. After a certain age, the body loses muscle mass more easily, and maintaining muscle isn't about vanity. It's about safety. It's about getting up from a chair without struggle, climbing stairs with confidence, carrying a bag without fear of losing balance. Walnuts, as part of a normal diet, can help because they offer quality energy and some compounds that the body uses well when you're trying to stay active. Practical tip with walnuts: they can have a bitterness that bothers some people. If that's your case, a light toasting changes the flavor completely. 2 or 3 minutes in a dry pan, low heat, stirring, just until the aroma comes out. Another option is soaking them in water for a few hours, or overnight, and then draining. They get softer, which helps those with chewing difficulties. And here's a simple precaution: walnuts go rancid easily. If they're kept open in a warm place, they lose their taste and their oil turns. So bought them? Store in a well-sealed jar, away from heat. If you buy in large quantities, the fridge helps a lot. Next up, almonds. These are the favorites for a lot of people, and it's easy to see why. They're easy to find, go well with everything, and usually have a more neutral flavor. For those over 60, almonds shine mainly when it comes to everyday protection: skin, immunity, eyes, and also blood sugar balance. And I'm being very down to earth here. It's not that almonds cure anything, but they're often a smart swap when the snack would have been bread, cookies, or sweets. Why? Because they have fiber and good fat together, and that combo usually makes sugar absorption slower and more stable. Many people feel fewer spikes and crashes, you know? That energy that rises fast and then crashes, bringing hunger, irritability, sluggishness. Another point about almonds is that they fit into simple routines. Want a quick snack? A small handful of almonds and a piece of fruit. Want a more solid breakfast? Oats, yogurt, and almonds. Want something easier to chew? Almond butter. But here's a classic mistake. Those fit nut butters from the store can come packed with sugar, added oil, and even flavorings. The ideal version is the one with just almonds and maybe a pinch of salt, if you can tolerate it. And if you have high blood pressure, the practical advice is obvious. Unsalted almonds become your best friend. Salted almonds are just too tasty and become a trap. Next thing you know, you've eaten half the bag. For those with stomach sensitivity, another tip: raw almonds can feel heavy for some people. Light toasting usually makes them easier to digest. And if chewing is tough, you can chop them finely. Blend them in a food processor, or use almond flour mixed into yogurt and fruit. And now, number 1 on our must-eat list: pistachios. A lot of people think pistachios are just a fancy snack, but they have a combination that tends to work very well for those over 60, especially for 2 reasons. They help with blood pressure, and they're great for those who need portion control without suffering. And that second point is more important than it sounds. Some foods you eat on autopilot. Pistachios, when they come in the shell, force you to slow down. You open one, eat it, open another. That gives your body time to realize it's full. It sounds silly, but it makes a real difference day to day. Also, pistachios are often a good fit for people wanting to take care of their vision and internal aging, because they contain natural pigments and compounds that, as part of a balanced diet, are very welcome. And there's a practical side. They provide protein and energy in a way that doesn't feel heavy. For those who wake up feeling weak or go for a walk and feel they need a sustaining snack, Pistachios can be a much better option than a cookie or a slice of cake. Now, the precautions with pistachios are simple and important. First, choose unsalted or lightly salted, especially if you're already dealing with high blood pressure. Very salty pistachios are delicious, and that's exactly why you'll overdo it. Second, watch out for flavored pistachios. The ones with artificial seasonings and dyes. The plain kind is usually best. Third, if you wear dentures or have trouble chewing, go for shelled pistachios and chew slowly, or use them chopped on top of food. And here's a quick guide to keep you on track with the 4 good ones. If your focus is heart health and feeling full, pecans work very well. But in the plain version, not sweetened. If your focus is brain, mental clarity, and even a boost in your sleep routine, walnuts are a strong choice, and if stored properly, they go a long way. If your focus is steady energy and a snack that doesn't leave you drained after, almonds are usually the easiest to include. And if your focus is blood pressure and portion control, pistachios in the shell, not too salty, are a very smart strategy. And before I flip the switch and get into the 4 you should avoid, or have only rarely, I want to give you a simple rule that applies to all the good ones. Don't turn this into a bucket of nuts. Nuts are concentrated. They're small, but strong. So think small portion and repetition. And also think quality. The less makeup, sugar, oil, excess salt, the better. Now yes, because from here on is the part that catches a lot of people by surprise. Those nuts that seem healthy show up in ready-made mixes, and that many people eat every day thinking they're taking care of themselves. But that, used the wrong way, might actually be holding you back. Now let's go to the other side of the coin. And here I want to repeat an idea to make it very clear. It's not that these options are poison on their own. The problem is that after 60, they very easily become a habit that gets in the way, mainly because of excess, industrialized versions, and how the body handles certain things at this stage of life. Fourth on the list of ones I'd keep very rare is macadamia. It's tasty, creamy, gives that sense of luxury, and that's exactly why it's misleading. Macadamias are very concentrated in fat and calories, and after a certain age, when the body doesn't burn energy like it used to, this becomes an easy shortcut to weight gain without noticing. And it's not just about looks. Extra weight tends to worsen blood pressure, knee pain, shortness of breath while walking, and even disrupt sleep. Another point is how it's sold. Macadamias rarely come plain. They often come roasted in oil, salted, or mixed in sweets, chocolate, cookies, and that turns it into a combo that weighs down your blood and your daily routine. If your goal is to use nuts to care for your heart, daily macadamias tend to be a less smart choice than the first 4 we started with. What would be a safe way to handle it? Treat macadamia as occasional. If you love it, fine. A small amount, once in a while, and preferably in the cleanest version possible. But if the idea is to have a routine nut, then pecans, walnuts, almonds, and pistachios usually make more sense. Third one I'd keep rare is cashews. A lot of people think they're light because they're soft and go down easy. But in practice, they have 2 common traps for those over 60. The first is that they tend to be easier to overeat. You keep eating, and before you know it, you've had a bunch. And they also show up a lot in very salty versions and roasted in cheap oil. That's tough for people with high blood pressure, swelling, fluid retention, or joint pain that worsens with a more inflammatory diet. The second trap is that, for some people, cashews can be an issue because of compounds that promote kidney stones in those who are already prone. It's not everyone, but after 60, we need to play it more safe, because dehydration is more common and the kidneys tend to be more sensitive. So if you've had stones before, recurring lower back pain, or a doctor has already warned you about it, daily cashews are not the best bet. Want something similar but with a more gentle profile for everyday use? Go for unsalted almonds or pistachios, and if you're craving that creaminess, A plain almond butter is usually a better swap than snacking on salted cashews. Second on the list that deserves caution is Brazil nuts. Here it's important to be very direct. They have something very good, but in a very high dose. It's the nut that a lot of people start eating to strengthen, and excited, eat a handful a day. And that's where the problem lies. There are nutrients the body only needs in small amounts. When you go way over instead of helping, it starts to backfire. And with Brazil nuts, the margin between enough and too much can be small. The risk is that people turn it into a daily habit without realizing, and the body doesn't always give a clear warning. Sometimes it shows up as fatigue, malaise, mild nausea, weird skin, hair loss. Things many people blame on age, stress, or the weather. That's why I like a simple rule. Brazil nuts are not handful nuts. If you're going to use them, do so in moderation, and don't make it a habit to eat several every day. And here's another point. If you already have thyroid issues, kidney problems, or take several supplements, you need to double your attention. Because sometimes someone is already taking mineral capsules and then piles Brazil nuts on top. Then it's easy to go overboard without noticing. Now we've reached number 1 on the avoid as routine side. Peanuts. And I'll say it simply. Peanuts are very popular because they're cheap, tasty, and everywhere. But as a daily habit for those over 60, they tend to be the most complicated choice. First, because they show up a lot in ultra-processed versions. Peanut candy, sweets, sugary and oily peanut butter, salty Japanese peanuts, packaged snacks, and that alone already kills the "I'm eating something healthy" argument. Second, because peanuts have a higher risk of mold contamination when poorly stored, and that's something most people don't even think about. And after 60, the body tends to have less wiggle room to deal with these small, repeated stressors. Also, peanuts are one of the foods that cause the most reactions in many people, even without a diagnosed classic allergy. Sometimes a person feels itchy, has a runny nose, heavy stomach, worse skin or swelling, and doesn't connect the dots because they treat peanuts as if they were neutral. And when someone is already taking several medications, anything that increases inflammation or interferes with digestion becomes another burden in the mix. If you really like them, there's a smart way to deal with it. Don't make peanuts your everyday nut. And when you do eat them, choose simpler versions, without sugar, without excess salt, and from a good source. But again, if the goal is long-term health, the first 4 are usually more consistent choices. Now, before we wrap up, I want to give you a quick map to take with you to the store and your kitchen. If you want to improve your choices without overcomplicating things, buy the simplest versions, without coating, without sugar, without industrial seasonings. If you have to choose between unsalted and salted, go for unsalted most of the time, especially if you're already managing blood pressure. And if you buy in large quantities, store them well, sealed container, away from heat and moisture. Nuts and seeds spoil more easily than people think, and when they go bad, the flavor changes and the body feels it. And now the closing, to tie it all together. After 60, health isn't about doing one thing perfectly for a week. It's about repeating good choices in a sustainable way. And nuts are a perfect example of that. They can be an excellent tool when you choose well and keep the portions small, but they can become a silent trap when you fall for ready-made mixes, hidden salt, healthy-looking sweets, or when you pick an option that doesn't match your current needs. So here it is, nice and simple. To prioritize daily, go with pecans, walnuts, almonds, and pistachios. To keep rare or use with much more caution, macadamias, cashews, Brazil nuts mainly because of easy overdose, and peanuts. And now I really want to hear from you. Which of these did you eat the most thinking it was helping? And which of the 4 good ones do you think will be easiest to add to your routine starting today? In the end, this isn't about living in fear of food. It's about stopping the habit of working against your own body without realizing it. Because after 60, what used to be just a snack can become a daily repetition that weighs on your heart, your blood pressure, your blood sugar, and even that annoying little pain you think is just age. And the good news is, it doesn't have to be complicated. If you want a clear rule to take from this, here it is. Choose a few options that really work in your favor, and repeat them consistently, in small portions, in the simplest form possible. Nuts aren't for filling a jar and snacking on all day. They're meant to be a smart little detail in your routine. The four that are usually worth it after 60 are easy to remember: pecans, walnuts, almonds, and pistachios, each with its strength. One helps a lot with satiety and heart health. Another has a profile that matches memory and mental clarity. Another is great for stability and everyday body protection. And another is a smart choice for those looking after blood pressure and portion control. On the other side, the four I'd keep rare or well-controlled are macadamias, cashews, Brazil nuts, and peanuts. Not because you can never touch them, but because they easily turn into a trap. Whether by excess, salt, hidden sugar, industrialized versions, or because for some people, the body simply doesn't handle them well as time goes by. And here's one detail that changes everything: the way you buy and the way you eat. Often, the problem isn't the nut itself, it's that it's coated, roasted in oil, full of salt, mixed in sweets, or becomes a bottomless handful in front of the TV. When you bring it back to its simple form, you've already avoided half the headaches. So do an honest test with yourself. What are you actually eating today? Is it the simple version or the dressed-up one? Is it turning into a daily habit or just showing up now and then? And how do you feel afterward? Lighter and more stable? Or hungrier, more bloated, more tired, more heartburn? And if you like this content, go ahead and subscribe to the channel. We have new content every week,